Would you pray with me, please? Heavenly God, may the meditations of my heart and the words of my mouth be pleasing this day unto you. Amen. Our reading from the New Testament this day comes from Paul's second letter to Timothy. He wrote 2 letters to the boy who was the young disciple charged with carrying on the church in a time of newness and also of unrest. So let's listen to Paul this morning as I read from the Common English Bible, by the way. And it's 2 Timothy 1:15 through 18. Short verses packed with meaning. Hear the words of Paul. You know that everyone in Asia has left me, even Phygelus and Hermogenes. May the Lord show mercy to the family of Onesiphorus, who has often helped me and was not ashamed that I was in prison. When he came to Rome, he looked eagerly for me until he found me. May the Lord allow him to find mercy from the Lord on that day. You know how many ways he has helped me in Ephesus. This is the words of the New Testament. Thanks be to God. On this morning of revival and refreshment, I say welcome, friends. Stored in a very safe place in the Library of Congress in a small blue box, there's a label that reads this: Contents of President's Pocket on the night of April 14th, 1865. Now, most of you here can put 2 and 2 together and realize that April 14th, 1865 in the evening was the night of President Lincoln's assassination. The box in the Library of Congress contains 5 things. 1, an embroidered hanky with the name A. Lincoln. The second thing in the box was a country boy's penknife. The third thing in the box was an old spectacles case repaired with string. The fourth thing in the box, a purse with one $5 bill in Confederate money. And the last thing in the box were several old, worn newspaper clippings. The clippings contained the story of the great deeds that Lincoln had done during his presidency. One was a comment on a speech by John Bright, a British statesman, who said this in the clipping: Abraham Lincoln was one of the greatest statesmen of all time. Now, maybe that's not news for us a century or so later, but if you think about it, at the time that that newspaper article was written, the jury was still out on who Lincoln was and what he did and how he led. To me, there's something sad about that scene. I picture him in the Oval Office, sitting at his desk with those old newspaper clippings out and reading them. At the time, before his assassination, he probably had to read those over and over again, which is why they were pretty worn and tattered. And I don't think it was because he needed his ego to be lifted up. I think it was probably because, just like you and I, and any leader perhaps, he was looking for some encouragement and refreshment. Let's shift the scene to the dungeon in Rome. It's dark. It's cold. Inside sits an aged, weathered man chained up to a guard. Paul of Tarsus, awaiting execution. Suddenly, he hears a noise from above. It's dark and he can't see, so he strains his eyes, and as the light comes down into that dungeon, he still doesn't know, but he senses a figure of a man, and all of a sudden, he comes to life because he probably hears the words, "Paul, Paul, I've been looking everywhere for you." It's Onesiphorus. Strange name, you might think. Onesiphorus, translated, means bringing help. One who brings help. Onesiphorus climbs down the ladder, and he opens his bag, and he gives Paul bread and fruit and cheese and wine. And Paul is refreshed. Paul is revived. Paul is encouraged. Onesiphorus, according to our text reading this day, we learn, came back not once, but again and again, over and over, climbing down that ladder to do nothing more than minister to Paul and give him refreshment and encouragement. Our message today, you might think from the bulletin cover and from the text readings that it's the fact that God will revive you. It is God who will refresh you. Well, friends, according to this text this morning, yes, it's God, but it's Onesiphorus, through God, who revived and refreshed Paul. Uh-oh, you know where this is going, don't you? Let's go to Timothy. Timothy was young and a courageous wannabe. He had a heart for the Lord. He had a heart to spread the gospel. He believed in his God. He had the fire, but he was a little bit timid. In fact, 3 times in the letters to Timothy, Paul has to tell him this: do not be ashamed of the gospel. 3 times in 2 letters. Timothy, you're young, you have vision, you believe, but that's not enough. You have to be a little bit stronger, and you have to step out a little bit, even when it's scary. One more fact this morning before I get to you. Onesiphorus is mentioned 1 time in the Bible, in the New Testament. 1 time. I just read it to you this morning. 3 verses. Short and sweet. But it is the place that we learn our role in the ministry of the church, which is to revive and refresh one another. So what do we learn from Onesiphorus? Well, I found 4 things, and I'm going to share those with you. A refresher seeks out a person in need. Now, Onesiphorus, don't let this be lost on you, knew what he personally was risking in order to go put that sack on his back, climb down into that dungeon in the midst of chaos and unrest, identifying himself as a Christian out in public to go serve the guy sitting in the basement of the dungeon. It's very clear from our text that Onesiphorus went on a mission of revival and refreshment for another. And he was not ashamed to do so. Just saying. It's sort of been, I thought about this, it sort of was like someone going to Guantanamo Bay and visiting one of the terrorists. It's kind of like that. One author I read this week puts it this way: Onesiphorus went to Rome at a time when every Christian was trying to get out of it. What a wonderful little guy. How hard do you seek out someone who you know is in need? Number 2, refreshing ministry happens not by what you say when you get there, or planning, or looking at the Bible verses and having your list, and it means a ministry of presence. Hear me on this one, friends. Sometimes do we not walk away or walk by or pray that someone else will do that job, not because we don't love and care for that person, but because we feel we are not equipped to minister in a refreshing, encouraging way to someone, and so we kind of want to step back. Know this, and be lifted up in this, and be encouraged in this. Haven't you experienced a time when just your presence, when just you being there, sitting down with someone, is all that person needed? It's a ministry that does not necessarily need words. We don't know what Onesiphorus said to Paul, but I'll bet you this, after walking all the way through, going through the fear of going through the guard system, absolutely letting the guard climbing down that ladder, carrying a pack of stuff. You know, they didn't have those scanners like they do at the airports, you know. So I'm sure the guard went through the bag to say, "What are you doing?" And he went through all of that. I'm sure he said very few words all the way through. And when he got there, I'm sure that he and Paul did not sit down and have a theological discussion. So that's the second thing we learn from Onesiphorus. You don't have to do anything but show up. Wow. Imagine what would happen if all of us thought about this and then just suddenly showed up to do nothing but be with someone in need. Woo. Refreshing ministry also means acceptance. Now it's getting tough. Hang in there. Okay? So you show up. You don't have to say anything or a lot. But you can't go minister to someone and go, "Well, I don't really agree with how he got himself into this mess." Can you see Onesiphorus? Okay, Paul, if you just would have been a little more tactful in your sermons, you wouldn't find yourself in this dungeon. Not. Yeah. Onesiphorus shows us that you have to accept the person in need right where they are. Right where they are. All that they are. And it doesn't matter. It's about your presence and God's presence through you. This should be getting easier. I'm hoping you're getting like, yeah, okay, Kathleen, we get this. Okay, I'm not asking for an amen yet. All right? And so my question to you on that is, do you offer advice and judgment to someone in need in the name of help? Sometimes. Just saying. Number 4, you can minister simply by cheerfulness. You can minister simply by being with someone and you being the person that is okay. Imagine, one more time, we're in the dungeon. Onesiphorus is like, Paul, how are you today? How are you doing? Paul's saying, I'm here with the presence of God. I am here by His grace. I'm okie dokie. Right? And Onesiphorus goes, well, that's good because it's a jungle out there. You know, it is such a jungle out there. Nero is killing every Christian he can find. I am telling you, I was risking my life for you, and I'm glad to do that. But the world is going, you know where, in a handbasket. What do you think that does for Paul? Holy smokes! I wish you hadn't brought me any fruit and cheese today. It's a bad day. Go away, Onesiphorus. You know, come back when you're in a little better state of mind. Have you ever received help from someone like that? Hi, how you doing? I came to visit you. Oh, my back. Oh, my ankle. Oh, my neck. Oh, my gosh. Did you hear what happened on CNN? The news. Oh, my God. The world's blowing up. How you doing? Gotta love that kind of help. You know? Okay? And so when I say ministering in a ministry of cheerfulness doesn't mean that you go in to serve with rose-colored glasses on. That's not what I'm saying. You know, this isn't the Pollyanna hour here. Okay? But it does mean that as you go in the love of Christ to minister, to be with, that you put your stuff aside because you are there to lift up, refresh, and revive someone that you have identified through God who is in need, more need than your need. Bada boom, bada bang. Key point. So, being a reviver or a refresher is not convenient for the person who is serving. That's where you come back into this picture, right? God knows that you have needs. God knows that you are struggling in this world just as much as the person that you are trying to serve. And what happened to Onesiphorus? He did it anyway. I call that sucking it up and getting out there. Because if God's plan works properly in this world, you sucking it up and ministering to someone else means that when you get to that point of sitting on the dungeon floor, someone else in God's kingdom will be there to do the same for you. Do you get it? It's a relational ministry. It is a relational ministry. And that is God designed from the beginning of time. Wow. My job is a congregational lifter-upper. That's part of my job. That's not my whole job, because if that's all I did, you'd be kind of carrying me out. Because every fiber of my being would be out there, and I would have nothing left to stand up here and be the shepherd and proclaimer of how I'm able to do my job. You see. So, my friends, as I look at you today, I say, you are not alone in your trouble and trial. You are not alone in needing desperately to be lifted up, to be encouraged, to be refreshed. And if you look around, other people are in the same boat. Let's go back to Onesiphorus and close with him. There had to be something put on his heart that caused that man to step out, down the ladder, into the dungeon anyway, knowing the risk, and just simply being with Paul and feeding him. And they probably laughed and feeling, just sitting in silence. Have you ever done that? Just sit in silence. I'm coming, Shirley. All you do is look in somebody's eyes. That's a good one right there. All you do is look in somebody's eyes and not say a word. And the peace which passes all our understanding will be with you and will sustain you as we all walk this earth in the spirit of reviving and refreshing each other in the name of the one who created us.